free. And if there are any problems, that's what IELTS here for. He'll sort those out. So please, if you can't hear me, click disagree. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll deal with any problems. We'll also have a question and answer session at the end. We do use a chat box. I see things are coming in already, so that's good. So if you do have questions, enter them, and then I'll spend the end of the webinar answering as many questions as I can. So there are a lot of webinars going on right now. We had one last night, Ask the IDP IELTS Expert live streaming on Facebook. And all I did for 1 hour was answer people's questions. So that's a very good opportunity for you. And you can see we have one each Tuesday for the next 5 weeks. Then there's also a masterclass webinar on the 6th of May. And the next countdown webinar will be on the 20th of May. And then there's a speaking webinar on the 13th of May. All of these are free, so please take advantage of them if you can. The masterclass webinar is slightly different than this countdown to IELTS. It's more of a presentation, whereas this is a training showing a lot more examples. They're both very, very good presentations. You should attend both of them if you can. There are a lot of support tools. Hopefully you're using them, or at least some of them. The Master Online is a online course that's available for 60 days for free. So that's a great opportunity to do some test prep while you're stuck at home, or perhaps not. Not everyone is housebound. There are also IELTS videos on the IDP IELTS Essentials YouTube channel, free practice tests on IELTS Essentials, on idpielts.me, and on IDP IELTS Australia websites as well. And then there are the assist tools. Now the assist tools are where you do a sample test and you send it in, and an IELTS expert marks it for you. There are reading assist, so you can do a sample reading test and get feedback. Writing assist, which is very popular right now, because people want to work on their writing before they take the test the next time, or the first time, hopefully. And then speaking assist, where you actually get a connection, much like we're doing here, and have a mock speaking test. And then you get feedback. So those experts not only do the test, they give you the feedback afterwards so that you know what you can do to improve. Okay, great. People are going to the website and getting the free practice test. Good for you. Now, I really recommend them. And my favorite of those are the listening tests, because they're short segments of the test. They're like bite-sized chunks, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and they're parts of the test. They're not the whole test. So they're more manageable when people have a busy schedule. But it's good that people are doing the Master Online course too. Again, it's a free online IELTS preparation course. It's a full course, and it's available for 60 days for free. So it's something you really should take advantage of. Now, sorry, my screen won't change. There we go. Okay, if our connection fails, and I thought for a second there it already had, just be patient. Technology is what it is. Don't panic. We'll be back. Get up and stretch, and we'll be back. Get a drink of water. Run around the block. Okay, so don't worry about it. Things happen. Now, computer-based or paper-based test. Now, to be honest, when the IELTS starts again, if it's in 1 month or 2 months, well, in some countries it hasn't stopped. They're still giving the test. But in this region, in the Middle East and most of Asia, the test is on a temporary hiatus, a break. But when it does start, it's going to start with the computer-delivered test, because it can be given to small groups. It's pretty clear that people aren't going to want to get in a large group of 100 or 150 people to take a test right after, with all of the well, what's going on with COVID-19 and the coronavirus. But the paper-based test will come back too. But the computer-delivered test is a very good option. It's available 6 days a week in a lot of centers, and it will be even available 3 times every day in most centers. There'll be a morning, an afternoon, and an evening session. They'll only take about 12 to 15 people for each of those sessions. And there is going to be a lot of pent-up demand. So pay attention to news releases, check your emails, see if you get announcements, tell your local test center that you want to know as soon as they start testing again so that they can send you a message or an SMS so that you're ready when the test comes back. The computer delivered, I really like it a lot, and I think you will too. It's the same exact test. The delivery is the same, and the speaking is still face-to-face with an examiner. But you get your result, not only is it available more times each week, 5 or 6 days a week, you get your score back in approximately 5 days, sometimes even less, as opposed to the paper-based test, which is only available 4 days a month, and you have to wait 13 days for your test report form. You can go and you can look at some short videos that describe the computer-delivered test, and you should look at those. They're on the website. Again, the length of the test is the same. The tests themselves are the same, but the time in the room is less because they're not handing out papers and collecting papers. That takes time. And without that time to hand out and collect papers, your time in the room is shortened. So that's a good thing. Now, as I said before, faster results, more test days, multiple sessions in one day. It's a quiet test room. You're in a cubicle, comfortable chairs. You have soundproof, noise-canceling headphones, not soundproof. There's less waiting all that time with papers back and forth. The session sizes will be smaller, as I just mentioned. Those partitions are there. They will practice safe distancing. So, and if you wish to wear a mask, that's fine. You will have to take it down for the photograph, but you can put it back on. And just be aware that the invigilators, the test team, and the examiners, they may well be wearing masks as well. So just be aware of that. Don't get nervous about it. We're all getting used to seeing everyone wearing masks now, so I don't think it'll be a big deal. But I do want to point that out just so that you know. Now, the test room is also disinfected constantly during the day, and there will be hand sanitizer available everywhere. And they will check your temperature before you get into the test room, just as a precaution. So don't worry about it. It's just what has to be done these days. So keep calm, prepare for your test. We're purposely moving people further away. There will be empty computers in the room because we want to make sure that people are sitting far enough apart that they feel comfortable and they feel safe. And the pre-preparation course is part of that to help you prepare in this downtime when you can't take the actual test, okay? Some of the new features, I think these are great. You can change the text size and the screen color on the reading test and the writing test and the listening test. You can change the colors, the screen resolution. That's fantastic. So you have control of how big the font is and what color and what resolution. You can go backwards and forwards through the test. When you answer a question, you see here number 1 is changed to color. Once you answer a question, it changes color. So you know which ones you've answered, and that's very helpful. But you will also, there's a different color as well for questions you did not answer, and then you can go back to them because you will know, I didn't answer this one, so you can go back to it and look at it again when you have the opportunity. So those kind of things are very helpful. You also have notes pages. So on the reading and the writing test, you can actually take notes, you can highlight text, you can move things and drag them and look at them compared to the paragraphs. Or like if you're doing paragraph headings, you can drag them and drop them in the box next to the paragraph. And it's right there next to each other instead of on the paper base where you'd be dealing with 2 different pieces of paper. So there's a lot of advantages with the computer-delivered test. Also, there's an automatic word count and an on-screen timer. And it's right there on the screen, and it flashes at you. So you know how many words you have, you know how much time you have left, and that's very, very important. And that timer is there for both the reading test and the writing test. And we'll see the timer in a minute that is used for those tests, the paper-based test, and you'll see how it's different. Here you're looking at the monitor and the timer and the word counter at the bottom of the screen, right there where you're looking. In the paper-based test, it's on a PowerPoint at the front of the room. And the people in charge, the invigilators, will announce the time as it moves down through the clock, or through the timer, excuse me. Some frequently asked questions about the computer-delivered test. Will you have a pen and paper? Yes, you will. They'll be right next to you on the desk, right next to your computer, left side or right side, depending on what hand you use. Okay. You won't have access, well, excuse me, never mind that. You will have access to a mouse and a keyboard, obviously. And so you need that to actually work your way through the test. Can you leave or start the next section if I finish early? Well, in the reading test, if you finish the section, definitely go on to the next section. Don't wait. And in the writing test, if you finish task 1, go on to task 2. But you can't leave the room if you finish early. You do need to wait. Everybody starts the test and finishes at the same time. If you can't type quickly, does that matter? Well, in a way, but I think you'll find you have plenty of time. Anybody who has any familiarity with the keyboard always feels very comfortable with the test. Even the Hunt and Peck people seem to have plenty of time. I've seen it many, many times. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But this downtime, when nobody can take the test, would be a good time to take some keyboarding lessons. There's a lot of very good keyboarding lessons online. And perhaps you can take advantage of that and improve your skill set while waiting to take the test. Do you get time to transfer your answers after the listening test? In the paper-based test, you have 10 minutes. In the computer-delivered test, you get 2 minutes at the end of the test because you're typing your answers directly onto the monitor, onto the screen, next to the questions. So you don't need the time to transfer from one paper to the next. So that's a very convenient thing in the new listening test, the computer-delivered listening test. Test report is exactly the same for both tests, so no difference there. And can you book multiple tests? Yes, but hopefully, if you do some test preparation in this downtime, you'll be prepared, you'll be ready, and you'll get the score you need without having to book multiple tests. But if you need to or if you want to, yes, you can. Now, the test is the same. Listening is a 30-minute recording with 4 sections and 40 questions. The reading is 60 minutes, 3 sections, 40 questions in both academic and general training. And the writing is 60 minutes with 2 tasks in both the academic and the general training. So the test itself is no different. It's just the delivery of the test that has changed. So feel comfortable. If you've taken the paper-based test before, I think you'll find that the differences in the computer-delivered test are advantages and not disadvantages. Now, here are some average scores around the region. These are the academic scores. You can see the lowest scores tend to be the writing test and the reading test, and the higher ones, the speaking test, is usually the highest score for most people. That's because we all need to use language to communicate with each other every day, regardless of what our first language is. And English tends to be the language that people use to communicate with each other when their first languages are different. It is just the way things are right now. So speaking tends to be the strongest skill. Now, these are some general training scores, and you can see that they're similar, but there are some differences, but it's still the same, where writing and reading tend to be lower. Not everywhere. As you can see, Turkey's writing scores are stronger than their speaking scores, and in Lebanon as well. So in some places, they buck the trend, and they have a slightly different score average. But in general, writing is the score that people have the most trouble with. So guess which test we're going to start with. And this is the test we'll spend most of the presentation will be on the writing test. We'll probably be on the writing test for about an hour, maybe a little more, but it depends on how things progress, okay? So let's get moving, and hopefully there'll be no technological problems that will stall us. Now, you should have the booklet with you, and I've just put the screen from the booklet just so that it looks familiar. We're starting with the writing test 4. Why is it 4? Because 4, 3, 2, 1, countdown to IELTS, and then you'll be ready, or I hope so, or more ready at the very least. Again, I said the timer, this will be on a PowerPoint in the paper-based test. Starts with 60, goes down, counts down every minute. And when it gets to 40, they'll say 40 minutes left. They'll say 20 minutes left, 10 and 5. They'll make those announcements, which can be kind of disturbing when you're in a room with a lot of people. It interrupts you while you're writing. That's one of the good things about the computer-delivered test is you just got the light that will flash at you at 40 minutes, 20 minutes, 10. Okay, so it's less disruptive, which is a very good thing. So how will you be scored in the writing test? Hopefully some of you have seen the band descriptors. There are 4 criteria that the examiners look at. The first is task achievement or response. This means how well did you answer the question? Did you stay on topic? Is your language appropriate? Now what appropriate means is you don't use bad language. You don't use slang. Okay, things like that. You don't use bullet points or numbered lists, right? You don't draw little pictures on your paper. You don't put titles. You don't put headings for your paragraphs. None of those things. Those are all considered inappropriate. If you do them, there is a penalty for that. So stay on topic, answer the question, and you'll be fine. Next is coherence and cohesion. Do you have paragraphs? Are they organized? Is there a sequence, that progression? They look for progression. That means like first, second, third, okay? When you give examples, the first cause of air pollution is, or the most important cause of air pollution is automobiles. Automobiles cause air pollution because they burn fuel and which produces smoke and chemicals that are dangerous to people and animals and buildings. The next important cause of air pollution is, okay, see what I did? I put that word, that sequence word, and then I explained it. I didn't just say the most important cause of air pollution is automobiles, and then I go on to the next example. No, explain your examples, okay? Use language. That's what lexical resource is. Use language to explain and use better language. I should say not simple language. If you thought of the difference between the temperature went up or the temperature increased significantly, which one is stronger language? Well, the second one, obviously. So that's the type of language you want to use on the IELTS test. You don't want to say something simple like it went up. You know, try to use more stronger language, and I'll give you some examples in a little bit. And the last is grammatical range and accuracy. Now, grammatical range. When you answer a question, you have a very good opportunity to show off your range. Now, remember, speaking and writing, you both produce language, so they're very similar, right? Speaking, I'm producing it. I'm writing, I'm producing it, right? Those are productive tests. Listening and reading, you're receiving language, so they're different. So speaking and writing both use these band descriptors to determine the scores. And one of the things you can do with grammatical range and accuracy, like my question about air pollution, you could say, well, the main cause of air pollution used to be factories, but today it is automobiles. And in the future, we're not sure what it'll be, but hopefully we'll find some solutions to it. One of the solutions could be electric cars. And if we have them, so what I've done there, I talked about the past and the present and the future, all in the same answer to the same question. And that shows a range of grammar. It's an easy thing to do. If I asked where you live, you'd say, well, I used to live in Abu Dhabi with myself. I used to live in Abu Dhabi, and then I moved to Dubai, and I'm living there now. Well, not now, but that's where I am living. And in future, I hope to move to the UK and retire there because my children live there. So I did past, present, future just to answer a simple question. Where do you live? What car do you own? Well, what car do you drive? I used to drive, but now I am driving, and in the future, I hope to be very successful, and I want to buy a Mercedes-Benz. Okay, so answering questions is an easy way to do grammatical range. It doesn't work for every question. If I said, "What's your name?" Well, my name used to, see, it doesn't work for something like name or how old are you, where you live, what's your favorite food, right? A lot of questions, you can answer them using past, present, future, both in speaking and in the writing test. So it's a very good way to get the range of grammar into your paper in a very simple way. Okay, these are the band descriptors in full. And now if you look under task achievement for band score 7, the A there, that's academic, says a clear overview. So to get a 7, you have to have an overview. What's an overview? It's a summary of the information. And look at GT, it says a clear purpose. That means why are you writing? Okay, so you have to do that to get a 7. Now, you notice the first line there, it says covers the requirements of the task. It means you answered the question. Coherence and cohesion at 7, logically organizes information. There is clear progression. First, second, third, one, another, next. You have to use those words. You have to use them. They have to be there. You have to use them, and you have to have a variety of them. You can't just repeat the same one over and over and over, okay? Look at band score 5 under coherence and cohesion. It says the second one, overuse of cohesive devices. Moreover, moreover, moreover for every example. Or well, one of them is, well, another one is, well, the third one is. No, that's an overuse of it. And that's what you'll get is a penalty of a 5 if you do that. If you repeat the same words over and over again, a penalty. Lexical resource under 7, sufficient, a range of vocabulary. That means you're using different vocabulary. You're not just repeating the same thing over and over again. And if you look at the last point under 7, it says produce occasional errors in word choice, spelling, and or word formation. So you can still get a 7. If you look up at the 8, it also says errors in spelling. So you can have mistakes in spelling and still get a 7 or 8 on the writing test. So don't get too concerned if your spelling isn't very good. It's not a huge penalty in the writing test. It is in the listening and reading test, but it is not on the writing test. And if you look under grammatical range of band score 7, a variety of complex structures. Complex structures are the words we use to describe and to support and to explain. And I'll show you some examples in a few minutes. But in brief, if you use the word because, that's a complex structure, right? That makes it complex. You don't say, I like Thai food, it tastes good. Those are simple sentences. I like Thai food because it tastes good. That's a complex structure. You have to have a variety of those. So you have to use different words. Now, if you look down at 6, it says uses a mix of simple and complex. So you might say, I like Thai food, it tastes good. I also like Indian food because it's spicy and it's fun to eat with your friends. So the first one I just used simple sentences, and the second one I used a complex structure. I said because. That's a mix where one example is simple and one example is complex. That will get you a 6, not a 7. Every example you give needs to be supported by one of those complex structures. Because, since, if, when, who, which. Okay? You'll get a list of them in a few minutes. Now, you're welcome to take photographs of these screens. I cannot share the PowerPoint with you, but you're welcome to do screenshots if you can, or even just photographs if it helps you. Okay? Let's look at academic writing task 1. Now, the structure of it is you have a paraphrase of the question prompt. So whatever the question is, right, you paraphrase that, and that is your introduction, because you have to give the information what or who, what, which is usually the same thing, who and what, and where and when. And that is given in the question. So it's in the question. It also has to be in the introduction. But you can't just copy the question. You have to paraphrase it. You have to change the words a little bit. In paragraph 2 is an overview, that brief summary. I mentioned the overview before. To get a 7, you have to have it. And then paragraphs 3 and 4 is where you describe, you support, you compare the key features. Now, you'll be given a lot of data in the academic task form, maybe 10, 12, 15 pieces of information, but you cannot report all of it. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to pick out the most important ones. The key features. There are usually 4, sometimes 5 of them. Now, on our question that's in the book, the chart below shows the number of men and women in further education in Britain in 3 periods and whether they were studying full-time or part-time. Who? What? Students in Britain. When or where in Britain? When? 1970, 1980, 1990. If you look at the graph at the bottom, you see 70, 80, 90, 70, 80, 90, 70, 80, 90. Men on one side, women on the other. In the paper-based test, divide it and show these changes over time. Now we have 4 changes over time and 1 comparison. So those are our 5 key features. We don't want to report every year and every number. It's too much information. So we want to pick the key features and only discuss them. Okay? So on your paper-based test, draw on your paper. On the computer-delivered test, bring down the note page, put your notes in there to highlight these before you start writing. Then you're going to do your introduction first and then your overview. So your introduction, only 1 to 2 sentence paraphrase of the question prompt. So it's who, what, in this case, full-time and part-time male and female students. Where? Britain. When? 1970s to 1990s. Now, you must never state why. Never give your opinion. Your job is not to say why this happened or what you think about it. If you do that, it's a serious penalty on your score. So you must never give a reason. This is deep. No, don't say that. Don't do that. All your job is to report the information, and that's it. So you've got your introduction and then your overview. Now, overview is that generalize the most important information that's given to you. So what's the overall trend? It increased, it's higher, it's lower, it went up, decreased, went down, those kind of words. You're not going to say it was 10 and it went up to 20. No, that's a specific example. You don't want that. You're just going to be in general. It increased, it doubled, 10 to 20. There. It doubled over this time period, but you don't give the numbers. You just describe what happened. So to sum up, in summary, overall. So let's look. Here's the first question we have. What's the highest score task achievement if you do not include an overview? A 5. So if you don't have the overview, you'll get a 5 in task achievement, which will seriously hurt your score and prevent you from, really likely to prevent you from getting an overall 7. So an overview, here we go. Overall, many more people pursued further education part-time rather than full-time. Also, the number of both men and women involved in further education increased in full-time education, while in part-time learning, the numbers went down for men and up for women. No numbers, no dates. It's just a summary. It's just an overall, okay? Now, we have time features in there. There was 1970, 80, and 90. So we have to say that from 1970 to 90, but we don't want to say that for every example. Remember, we have to have a variety of vocabulary. So here's 4 different ways to say the same thing. The first time we have to use the actual numbers from 1970 to 1990. Then we'd say, as an example, during these 30 years, over this same period, in these 3 decades. So from 1970 to 1990, the number of part-time male students in Britain decreased sharply from about 1 million students to just over 800,000 in 1980, and increased again by 1990 to approximately 900,000. During these 30 years, the number of female part-time students increased significantly to about 1.1 million students. Over this same period, the number of male full-time students more than doubled, over 200,000. Additionally, in these 3 decades, the number of female full-time students stayed almost the same at just over 200,000, despite a slight dip in 1980. So we've got good vocabulary, decreased sharply from 2 during these years, our different time. The second example, increased significantly, more than doubled, additionally, stayed almost the same. So good descriptive language. So, you need to use that language for explaining data. It's very important that you be descriptive, that you be accurate. So here's some examples of language you can use. Doubled is a very good word. Fluctuations instead of changes. Okay, good vocabulary. Decreased sharply, increased again. And in our example paragraph, you look in the last line, a slight dip, which means when it just goes down a little bit, right? Or a slight fall or a slight dip. So let's move on to general training writing task 1. So it's a letter, or in today's world, honestly, it'd be an email. If any of you have a computer at work or for studies, you have emails and you have to respond to them, okay? So at the beginning, you have your salutation, and then you put there why you're writing. I'm writing to you to invite you to a birthday party, okay? Then the second bullet point, the third bullet point, and then the conclusion, what you want to happen. Now at work, it could be, I'm writing about the meeting we had last week, next paragraph. I really want you to get onto this information as quickly as possible. Next paragraph, get the information back to me as soon as you can. Last paragraph, I'll be in touch with you again soon. I hope to hear from you. Thank you. Regards, Mark. Okay? So why are you writing, the things that need to be done, and then at the end, what you want to happen. That's your purpose, right? Remember in the manuscript, a clear purpose. Why are you writing this letter/email? You have to have a reason. So, if you do not cover all 3 bullet points, there are always 3 bullet points. What kind of penalty? A 4 in task achievement. Does not cover all the bullet points. That's a very serious penalty. So be very careful if you're taking the GT test that you cover all those bullet points, because if you do not, the highest score on task achievement, even if you write well, your highest score will be a 4 because you didn't do what was expected of you. So here's our question that's in your booklet. You live in a room in college which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement and you find it very difficult to work. Write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college. In the letter, describe the situation, explain your problems, why it's difficult to work, say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. So you have to cover all 3 of those. So what's your purpose for this? That you're having problems with your roommate and you want them to help you. You probably want them to get you a different room, right? So you have to be very clear why you're writing this email or this letter. Now, notice at the bottom, it says, Dear Sir or Madam. That means this is a very formal letter. You need to use formal language. Don't be overly friendly. Don't start it with, Hi, how are you? That would be inappropriate, so don't do that. Now, let's look here. So, our question again. You live in a room in college which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement and they find it very difficult to work. That's our question prompt. Now, our introduction. I'm a student at this university and live in the residence hall. And now I'm having difficulties with my roommate, which makes it tough for me to continue with my studies. I would really like to move to a different room. So it's the same as the question, but the words have been changed a little bit. In what you want to happen, your purpose for writing is very clear. You're having problems, you want to move. You have to state who, I'm a student, where, the residence hall, when, now, and where you live, the residence hall, when, now, and why, the purpose, I'd really like to move to a different room. Because of the problems, right? Because of those problems. So, what are the problems? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's look at this. If you do not have a purpose or a reason, Highest score will be a 4 on task achievement. Fails to clearly explain the purpose. Okay? If you don't have all the bullet points, 4. If you don't have a purpose, 4. That's your highest score. It's a very serious penalty. Pay attention to it. Now, we go back to our question. When you're looking at it on the paper-based test, you can write some examples down on the booklet, like I've done here. In the computer-delivered test, you pull down a note page and you type them into the note page. Don't write whole sentences, just write notes. So I put my examples down. Now, is wet towels on the floor the most serious problem? Is it the one I want to write about first? AC on and windows open seems more important than wet towels on the floor. And doesn't lock the door, that seems even more important. So after you write a few examples on your paper, you probably won't need 6, but I just put 6 just in case. Then put them in the order of their importance, which is the most important problem, down to the least important, snores loudly. Snoring is annoying, but compared to doesn't lock the door, it's not as important. So doesn't lock the door will be the first one. So when you give your examples, stay on topic, choose the right tone. Tone must be consistent. Use polite, more formal language from beginning to end in a formal letter, like this one, or use friendly, more informal language if writing a personal letter, like an invitation to a birthday party, for example. The language sounds differently. The tone is different. One is very formal, one is informal, friendly. So if your tone is not appropriate, is inappropriate, band 4 again, task achievement, tone inappropriate. So another serious penalty. So if you mix up your tone and say, hi, how are you? I have problems with my roommate. That's going to get you a 4 because it's inappropriate to be happy and angry at the same time. That's what tone is. So progression and support. That's what we saw under coherence and cohesion. Have that progression and support and explain why they're important. The most important problem I have with my roommate is that he does not lock the door, so someone could come into the room and steal my things. If this happened, it'd be very difficult to continue studying. The next problem I have with him is that he leaves the AC on and the windows open, which makes our electricity bill much higher than it should be. Those are 2 significant problems. So you explain, you don't just say, he doesn't lock the door. You explain why that's a problem and how it affects you. And notice some of the explanation words there. So someone could come into the room if this happened, okay? Which makes our electricity bill. Those are all complex structures. So you're explaining it and you're supporting it and you're not just writing simple sentences. He doesn't lock the door. Someone could come into the room and steal my things. This would make it difficult for me to work and to study. No, don't do that. Don't keep them simple. Use those complex structures, as I've done here, and it really makes it a lot stronger. So, if you do not have that progression, first, second, third, next, after that, band score of 5, lack of overall progression. So you see there are some specific and serious penalties for not having the right tone, not having not covering all the bullet points, okay? So, and then this one, not having your progression, that lack of progression will result in a score of 5. Even if you write well, you get these penalties if you do not do these things. So be very careful. So you have to have a range of those devices too. You can't just say, for example, for example, for example, for example. You have to have a range of them, a variety of them. The most important example is, the first reason is, another cause is, in addition, next, after that, finally, all those kind of words. You know these words, but you have to use them, and you have to use a variety of them. So our conclusion, just brief, 1 or 2 sentences to say what you want to happen. Please get back to me right away with the information I need. I look forward to hearing from you soon. I really hope you can come to the party. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be in touch with you again shortly. what you want to happen in that fourth paragraph. You must do that. It's part of the purpose, right, of why you're writing. You want them to come back to you with information. You want them to contact you. You want them to come to the party. You want them to help you with your problem. You want them to send the toy that you ordered for your son. You want them to, whatever it is, you're writing to them. You want them, somebody was rude at the shop and you want them to punish that person, right? State that in your conclusion, what you want to happen. It's very important. Now, task 2. Now, the advice for task 2 is the same for both academic and general training because they're both essays and its question types are very, very similar. In fact, if you practiced a general training task 2, it would be just as helpful for you as if you practiced an academic task 2. So don't worry about that. Practice, practice, practice. It's the only way to get better at anything is to practice. So you need a topic sentence for each of your body paragraphs. You're going to have probably 4 paragraphs. You have to support your main ideas like we did in that letter. We had those examples, that's our support. And those examples have to be in order. And then you give extra information, you explain, and you give your opinion, okay? If you do that, if you explain and you give your opinion and you support your examples, you'll get a better score. Definitely. So that structure, paraphrase of the question prompt, state your position. Body paragraph 1, a related group of examples on one part of the question. Next body paragraph, a related group of examples on another part of the question. And your conclusion, repeat the most important information, sums up your position. So, how many parts here? Well, almost every IELTS question has 2 parts. Causes, the solutions, the positive, the negative, okay? Almost all of them. So you're going to write body paragraphs about each of those. You will always have an introduction and you'll always have a conclusion, but there are usually 2 parts and you must address one part in one paragraph and the other part in another paragraph. So you will almost always have 4 paragraphs. Just go into the test thinking, I will probably write 4 paragraphs, okay? Now, your introduction. A good type of introduction is a 3-part introduction. The pattern is a neutral statement that just gives the topic. No opinion. You don't know if I like it or I don't like it. It's just neutral. Then paraphrase the question, and then state what's going to happen, your position, and where we're going with this essay. Let's look here. Every year, more and more students choose to study online rather than attend traditional classes at a school or institution. What do you think are the causes of this, and what solutions can you suggest? So we'll have a neutral statement, paraphrase, where are we going? Studying online is becoming increasingly popular. That's very neutral. You don't know if I like it or not. Each year, more students opt to study online as opposed to attending class on campus. That's the same as the question prompt at the top. The language has been changed a little bit. That's what a paraphrase is. And 3, this essay will discuss the reasons why this is happening and put forward several solutions that may spin this trend. So that's where we're going. So here's our introduction. Then we'll discuss reasons. Then we'll discuss solutions. And we'll have a conclusion. Okay? Now, don't write these numbers 1, 2, 3. They're only in here to make it clear to you as a student, trainee watching this, that that's what these are. The 3-part introduction. So make sure you realize that. The numbers 1, 2, and 3, 1 is the neutral statement, 2 is the paraphrase, and 3 is where are we going with this paper. Now, let's look at another one. Some people believe studying on campus is the most effective way to learn, while others believe that studying online is more effective. Introduction, studying on campus is better, studying online is better, conclusion. So, why is it that the effectiveness of studying online instead of on campus is debated? Neutral. It's a question, but it's still neutral. Why is it debated? Paraphrase. Some people believe it's much more effective than traditional learning, while others do not. Where are we going? This essay will discuss both sides of the argument in detail, providing specific examples of the effectiveness of both. Very clear. Neutral, paraphrase, where are we going? It's a great way to write an introduction. It works for every essay type. Now, each body paragraph has to have a topic sentence. Makes very clear what the main idea is going to be. First, I'd like to discuss some of the positive aspects of television. It's not an example. It's just saying this paragraph is about the positive. So if this paragraph is about the positive, what's the other paragraph about? The negative. Positive, negative. So I have one about the positive things about television, 2 or 3 examples, a paragraph about the negative things about television, aspects, 1, 2, or 3 examples. Use first, second, third, one, another, next to describe your examples. Don't repeat the same words over and over again, and support each of them with a different complex structure. Because, since, if, when, which, while. Variety of those linking, those progression words, first, second, third, variety of the complex structures. So let's look. Introducing and sequencing your examples, putting them in order, logical order. The first example of a cause of air pollution is. Another good thing about online education is. The next example of a solution to pollution is. Okay? So whatever your topic is, the first example of this is. And now you're going to give the example, and then you're going to say, this is important because, this is important since, and if we do this, those are our complex structures. We need to explain, and support. Complex structures. To achieve a 7, you have to have a variety of them. We looked at the band descriptors earlier. 7 says variety of complex structures. 6 says mix of simple and complex. If you don't use complex structures for each example you give, you'll never get a 7. So it has to have an independent and a dependent clause. Independent means it can be a sentence all by itself, but dependent means it's not. I like Thai food because it tastes good. I like Thai food is a sentence. It can stand alone. But because it tastes good is not a sentence. See what I mean? Because it tastes good is a clause. We call it a clause. But I like Thai food is a sentence. But when you put them together, it's a complex sentence, structure, using those structures. It helps make your writing more interesting. It adds information and details, demonstrates the range of sentence types you can write, and you get a higher score. All good things. Here's some examples. All these words help us to add more information and explain in more detail what we're writing about. The more information, the more explanation you provide, the better. Since, if, when, which, who, that, while, whereas, rather than, where, so that, even though. And there are many, many more, okay? I used to do a presentation where I gave 27 of these words. This is just 12. But you're probably only going to give 4, 2 or 3 examples on one side, 2 or 3 examples on the other side. So you don't need 27 words for that, but you need 6. Because, obviously, is the most common one, and I didn't even put it down here because I've used it so many times already tonight that hopefully that one's going to stick in your head. Because, since, if, when, which, who, that. Okay, those are the most common. Use them. You do already. So just start practicing them so you recognize what you're doing. If you do not use that variety, you could get a 6 and make it simple and complex. How and why do we use them? To give extra information to explain and support the examples. For example, television is relaxing, which makes it a favorite activity for many people. Because television is relaxing, it's a favorite activity for many people. Since television helps us relax, it's become a favorite activity for many people. They all say the same thing, but it's said in a slightly different way, in different complex structures. So when we write an essay, we're going to write one now, so to speak. I'm going to show you examples of good essays. One was simple language where you have to use more examples. Now think about that. If you write shorter sentences, remember you have to have 250 words here, about 30 lines on your paper. If you write short, simple sentences, you're going to need more examples to fill up that space, right? But if you can explain each of your examples with more language, you're taking up the space on the paper, whether it's on the computer delivered or on the paper base, and you won't have to give as many examples. Some people feel the positive aspects of television are more important than the negative. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So you have to discuss both. To what extent means you must discuss both. If I said, do you like coffee or tea? You can say, I like them both. Okay, but in an essay, you'd have to talk about one, tea or coffee, right? Do you agree or disagree? One or the other. It's not both. Here, to what extent makes it both. You must discuss both. So let's look closely. Here's our introduction. Remember, don't write those numbers in your essay. Television's been an important part of people's lives for a very long time. Most people would agree that there are both positive and negative aspects of television. Although there are some problems with watching television overall, I believe there are more benefits. 43 words. Simple introduction, very clear. We know where we're going, right? Your position's clear. Which do you prefer? You like the benefits. You like the positive side. But you understand there are problems. So you're going to talk about the problems, but the benefits are your position, and that's what you feel more strongly about. So, first benefit of television is it's entertaining. This is good because we laugh. There's our complex structure. First, in our example, the sequencing word, our example, complex structure. Another positive aspect of television, very informative, helps me learn. Sequencing word, example, learning. Good to learn, so TV helps. There's a complex structure. So, there's a sequencing word. Television next one way to spend free time. There's our example. When I'm busy, I can take a break. There's a complex structure. So we're giving more information. Sequencing word, example, complex structure. And what's next? More explanation. Opinion. I like to laugh. I think this is important. This helps me finish my day. Always connect your opinion with the specific example. If you put your opinions in a separate paragraph, it's hard to link them to each other. So put your opinion right with the example. It's a much better way to do it. So if we put this in a paragraph, we indent the first line, it's 74 words. Even with 3 examples, it's only 74 words because these are pretty simple sentences. I mean, there are complex structures here, and you would get credit for that. This could possibly earn a 7 because it's got everything it needs. It's got the sequencing word, clear examples, it's well written. You're using complex structures, and you're explaining all the things you need to do to get a 7. But it's only 74 words. You might need 4 examples if you're only writing like this. So let's look at stronger vocabulary, more support. So we still have our 3 parts. The first benefit of television is it can be very entertaining. Since we can watch shows on television, make us laugh, it helps make our days less stressful. In my opinion, this is the most important thing. And then another positive aspect, it helps me learn, for example, which broaden our minds and is always productive use of our time. Sequencing word, example, complex structure, and explanation, opinion. Only 2 examples plus our topic sentence. First, I'd like to discuss, give 106 words with only 2 examples. The other one was what? 74 words with 3 examples. This is 106 with 2 examples. So the more you can explain, the better. And you don't need as many examples. Now, if we wrote 3 examples, 165 words, that's a lot of words. And it's not that it's bad and there's no penalty for that. But what it did was it took up a lot of time to think of the example, to write it well, takes time. Do you need 165 words in this paragraph, or is 106 words enough? Right? Because you've still got 2 paragraphs to go and you're already at 150 words. So you probably don't need 3 examples here. When you write more simple language, you will need 3 or maybe 4 examples. But if you can write longer and explain more, you won't need as many examples. Now, that's in a paragraph or 106 words. 2 examples, right? I've gone back to the 2 examples. I just did this to show you that 3 examples is too much if you can explain thoroughly. If you can't explain thoroughly, you will need more examples. But in our case, we just have 2 examples here. Very entertaining, and it's very informative. It helps me learn. Those are our 2 examples. Fully supported. Then we have to have the negative as well. Remember, that was the positive. Now we have to have the negative. Makes people lazy, lazy, when. There's our parts of it, okay? You can see the parts here. Also, there's a mixed example and then an explanation. And in my opinion, explain, explain, explain. That was 92 words. And then our conclusion. As you can see, there are clearly both positive and negative issues regarding that wonderful invention, television, but I feel very strongly that the that the positive aspects far outweigh the negative. I'm confident in stating that TV was popular in the past, it's popular now, and I'm positive it will continue to be popular well into the future. What did I do there? I used past, present, and future in my conclusion. You could do that with any topic. Okay? If you're talking about air pollution, that would be an easy one to do past, present, and future. Or leisure activities, or exercise, or education. Everything you can give examples and you can explain things, past, present, and future. It'll help your grammar school. So let's put it all together in our essay. There it is. Looks good. Now notice I've indented. This would be what you'd write on the paper-based test. You want to indent that first line to make your paragraph very, very clear. Because if you don't, then they might cram together and you won't be able to see where one, or the examiner won't be able to see where one paragraph starts and where the next one ends. Or where one paragraph ends and the next one begins. Both ways. Both things are important. So on the paper-based test, you want to indent that first line. And notice there's a blank line as well in between. On the computer-delivered test, you can do this because that space in between the paragraphs always stays there. Even if you typed more in the first paragraph and went to the next line, the rest of the paper is going to automatically drop down. So you will always have that space in between. It won't be filled up. But if you wrote something else on your paper-based test in that empty line, it could disappear, and then your paragraphs, they look like they're together, which you don't want to do. So, paper-based, computer-delivered. All right? Is that clear? I hope it is. It's a very simple thing, but it's very helpful. It's very useful. The examiner will have no problem with either of these. How many paragraphs? 4. How many paragraphs? 4. Very clear. You don't want to confuse them and make them search for your paragraphs. Now, keys to good writing, understand the topic, right? How many parts? Usually 2. How many paragraphs? Usually 4. 2 parts, positive, negative, good, bad, cause, result, problem, solution, 2 parts. How many paragraphs, though? You have to have an introduction. You have to have that conclusion, 4 paragraphs. Use those complex structures. Make sure your position is clear. And support with examples, ideas, extra information. Describe, support, explain, opinions. Structure again, just to remind you. Paraphrase the question, state your position. Related group of examples, paragraph 2. Another group on another part of the question, and then your conclusion. Okay, I hope that's clear. This is a very good, this is the structure of a task 2. And if you follow the examples I've given you, I think you'll find that you'll do well on the test. Now, that took, I believe, just over an hour. Yeah, almost exactly an hour. So we're going to have a break here, about 10 minutes, and I'll see you on the other side. And walk around a little bit, stretch, get a drink of water, have a sandwich if you want. I won't, but you can. Go ahead. And we'll come back. We'll do the listening, reading, and speaking tests, and then I'll answer some questions for you, okay? And don't forget, next Tuesday, there's an Ask the Expert, where all I do for 1 hour is answer your questions. So if you can, please attend that. I think you'll find it very helpful. If you can't attend, you can go to the Facebook Live page. All of those Ask the Experts that I've done for the last 3 years are archived there. So you just go and you find them and listen to one of them in your free time, or listen to part of one of them. You don't have to sit and listen to me for an hour. Just click randomly anywhere in the video. All I'm doing is answering questions. So you'll get some useful information. Okay? All right. Well, thank you. And I will see you in just a few minutes.